This is KOOP HD1 HD3 Hornsby, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Each week, we explore how your library is more than books. The library is knowledge, technology, and inspiration for our community.
Good afternoon, and this is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. And I'm DJ Harris. I'm going to be hosting today's show. And today we have a really special edition of Volumes because we're going to be interviewing Kanya Lyons. Kanya Lyons is the Public Information Specialist at the Austin Public Library. And she's had that job for 10 years. Which feels like 12, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. And Kanya is got a very important job at the Austin Public Library, and we're going to be talking to her. You recognize her as the usual host to Volumes. So she's sitting on the other side of the mic today, and I'm going to be your host. Kanya, welcome to Volumes.
Thanks, DJ.
So, 10 years at the Austin Public Library. You started as a young person using the library, right?
Absolutely.
You started as a young person anyway, but as a young person, you used the library.
I did. I was a very avid library goer from the time I was still reading picture books, honestly. I remember going to Fox and Fox Central, the former Central Library, which is now no longer a library. But anyway, I would go and I would hang out and pick out picture books, and I would spend hours and hours there. And then I remember slowly graduating to like the early readers and kind of like working my way up. And then I remember impressing my mom one time when she came to get me. She's like, what are you reading? And I said, oh, it's this book about technology. She said, you can read that word? And I said, yeah. And I was like 7. But yeah, the librarians were always so welcoming. I loved the summer reading program. I would just fill up those sheets and just turn them in. They'd be like, you read all those books? Are you sure you're not exaggerating? I'd be like, nope, I read those all.
I'll bet you did too. So you used the Falk Library. Do you remember the castle in the young people's?
I totally remember the castle. That is where I spent all of my free time. Like if it was occupied, I would go sulk in a corner somewhere because that was my castle. And that's where I sat and read.
Right. So those of you who do not know, the Austin Public Library, when the main library was the Falk Library, but this was not decades ago, but a while ago. There was
1980 is my recollection.
There was a castle that was kind of made out of like shag carpeting or something like that. And
yes.
It was really popular, but it was very dangerous too.
I guess so. So it's interesting because I lived in Austin as a young, person, as a first grader, but I also lived in Houston as well. And there was a castle at one of the major branches there that I used to also spend time in.
Not as good as ours, though, huh?
I think they were like kind of, I don't know that it was something special custom built. I think they were like, that's what they had in libraries for a while. Just like when I was a kid, we had merry-go-rounds, and then those were considered dangerous. Well, the castles were like totally the thing in like, I guess the late 70s or something. And then
it must have been. Yeah. Then the Falk Library, I believe it was opened in 1977, 78. Do you remember?
I think it was built in the time period you're talking about. I believe the grand opening was in 79.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I was going there in 1980, it was brand spanking new, shiny. And I just loved the children's area, all the windows. Honestly, my other favorite thing was the librarians because I could ask them anything and they would never say, oh, I don't know. Or, they would say, well, let's go find out. Well, let's look and see, or let's look this up. And they always had great book recommendations. And, I'd be like, well, I read all the Nancy Drew and all the Encyclopedia Browns. Don't you have anything else that's kind of like that?
Yeah, I remember those kind of kids when I was a librarian. Yeah, very voracious readers, but also, very high expectations as well. I'm looking for something new. You got to help me here.
Yeah. And the librarians always delivered. And so I've always had a love of libraries ever since those very, very early years. And it kind of, continued on and off. It's not that I went to the library every week, but I certainly never forgot about the library. I would pop in, oh, I need this or I need that. And, oh, yeah, I'll just pop over to the public library and see what they've got going on. But, I didn't really understand how much libraries had transformed until I started working at the library 10 years ago. And of course, in the last 10 years, libraries have continued to blossom and transform a little bit more with digital technology and ebooks and things like that. Although real traditional books are actually still more popular than ebooks.
Yes. Well, there has been quite a change in libraryship, in librarydom, since maybe the 90s or something like that. And so as a user of the library, when you came in to work for the library, you probably had some preconceived notions or some ideas about what you would be doing at the library. And maybe you got a little bit broader experience after working at the library?
Yes. So my memories of the library were very much like I said, books, librarians, reading. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to work at the library. Oh, maybe they'll let me read stories to kids. Well, turns out the youth librarians are specially trained, and this is a skill that just not anyone can do. So anyway, but yeah. I guess I was kind of aware that yes, libraries had computers, sort of like the internet cafes of the United States.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of vaguely aware of, I think sometimes you can get your taxes done at the library. I think I saw a flyer once, but really I had no idea of the breadth of services and programming that libraries are offering. And so when I started working at the library, it really took me on this journey of learning about what it is that libraries are really doing in the community. And it's so much more than I could have imagined. I mean, for example, we've talked in previous episodes about some of the technology assistance that happens. So a lot of folks, not only do they maybe not have a computer at home or not have Wi-Fi at home, but a lot of folks are still not really computer literate, and it is a type of literacy. And so when you have to look for a job online or take a test online or take care of some paperwork, most everything we do these days that's bureaucratic is now, most of it's been transferred online. So you have to go and renew your sticker for your car online, and all these different things. So the libraries are not just a place where people go to kind of access the technology. They go there needing help accessing the technology. And so librarians and library workers have really kind of taken this role on of helping people kind of cross that digital divide. And it really makes a huge difference. But that's just one thing. I had no idea that the libraries, for example, even did puppet shows. I wish I had taken my daughter when she was 2 to go to these amazing puppet shows with like handmade puppets and all literature based. I mean, it's just incredible that they mount, I think, 3 shows a year, and they take them to all the libraries throughout town. It's so incredible, and it's such a treasure that we have that here. And that's something I didn't even know about, because I totally would have taken my daughter when she was younger. And I did eventually, once I worked at the library and learned about it, I definitely took her. They used to do some, on the occasion, they would do one on a Saturday or a Sunday for working parents. And I appreciate that. That's another thing. There's all these different story times at the library. And I didn't know about that. I never went to story times. As a kid, I would just go pick out books, read, and then pick out more books and read more books. But that was pretty much like it. Like there wasn't, other than the summer reading program, to my memory, I don't remember participating in any sort of programs or activities. Maybe there was like a worksheet or something that they would have out that you could do. But now, I'm just so impressed with the breadth of offerings. There are tons of craft activities for adults and children, movies for adults and children, and then just all kinds of interesting workshops where you get to learn about things, try new things. And it's anything from financial literacy to, I think at one time we were doing salsa dancing, but that's been a while ago now. But some of our libraries have yoga classes. Sometimes they learn traditional healing about, learn about herbs and stuff. I mean, there's just anything that you can almost conceive of. There's probably been a library program about it, or there's going to be one soon.
Right.
If something is trending, more than likely the librarians are aware of it, and they're wanting to engage with the public in that world. And that, I think, is really neat, is that we're always looking at what people are interested in, what questions people have, what interests people have, and saying, not only do we have books about those topics, but we have programs you can come in, get your hands-on kind of experience with stuff.
Right.
And that's really cool. And just there's so many more things that the library is doing in the community that I think most folks are just not aware of.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And I need to remind you that you're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show here on KOOP. We're broadcasting at 91.7 on your FM dial, and we're streaming on the internet at www.koop.org. And past issues of Volumes can be found at the Austin Public Library's website at library.austintexas.gov. And I believe I introduced myself. I'm DJ Harris. I'm sitting in as your host today because we're interviewing your usual host, Kanya Lyons. And Kanya, we are going to take a little break here to find out some information about some of the programs going on at the Austin Public Library, but we'll be back to talk to you in just a moment. So let's listen to see what's going on at the library.
Can't wait.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I'm a librarian at the Central Library. Each week I highlight a selection of programs for adults that are happening around the Austin Public Library, and our full list of programs may be found on the library's events calendar. This Friday, August 31st, the Central Library is hosting its end of the summer Pechanga, dance along to salsa, merengue, and cumbia selections from the Latin music CD collection available at the library. Plus, there'll be a DJ. The Pechanga is 18 and up only and is from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock Friday night, August 31st at the Central Library. Saturday afternoon, September 1st, the Cepeda Branch Library will host a traditional healing workshop with Marika Alvarado. Marika descends from generations of traditional healers, midwives, and herbalists. Her workshop will focus on using traditional healing for weight loss and acid reflux. The workshop is Saturday, September 1st from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the Cepeda Branch Library.
Hey there, Austin. This is Zane from the Teen Library Council here to tell you about this week's library events for teens. The controllers are in your hands at Free Play Gaming. Teens can meet other gamers and try out multiple consoles, including the PS4, Wii U, Xbox 360, and more, with popular titles like Smash Bros., Rocket League, and FIFA World Cup. The next Free Play Gaming session is Tuesday, September 4th at 5 p.m. at the Ruiz branch and is open to ages 10 and up. More details on Free Play Gaming and additional programs can be found at library.austintexas.gov/events.
You're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. Radio for people, not for profit.
On September 16, 1810, Father Hidalgo issued a Gritos Dolores near Guanajuato calling for the end of Spanish rule in Mexico. It was a call to arms that began a revolution against Spain and 11 years later produced the new sovereign nation of Mexico. The Republic of Mexico officially declared September 16th as its National Independence Day in 1825, known as 16 September. San Antonio and Goliad have celebrated this day for more than 160 years. 8 other countries celebrate Independence Days between September 15th and October 15th, Hispanic Heritage Month. KOOP seeks to bring a fuller cultural awareness of this important month with special programming and by recognizing 16 as one of its celebration events. Listen in for this unique coverage on KOOP, Radio for People, Not for Profit.
And you're listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on KOOP. I'm your host today. My name is DJ Harris, and today we are interviewing Kanya Lyons, whose job is Public Information Specialist at the Austin Public Library, but you know her as the host of Volumes. And you've been doing Volumes here for a year and like 3 or 4 months, or
I think it was October when we
So
started.
almost 2 years.
Getting close to 2 years.
Yeah.
We're about
Good.
to have our 100th episode, you know.
Is that right?
That is right.
What is today's episode number? Do you know?
I want to
Less
say
than 100.
98 or
Okay.
99. I'm not sure. I'd have to
All right.
look. Sorry.
Well, this is Volumes. I'm DJ Harris, and we're talking to Kanya about her career at the library, but also about her use of the library, and as a longtime user of the library, even as a young person. And you still use the library, right? You check out stuff,
Are you
don't you?
calling me old? No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
I'm calling you.
I'm joking.
Yes, thank
I
you.
still use the library
Yes.
all the time. And I have throughout, even like I said, as a college student, I think there was a point where I couldn't find a book for a class at ACC.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was that I was broke. And so I found like an older edition at the library, and I used it for the first like month or so of class, maybe 6 weeks. And then I had the money and I bought the actual right edition of the book. But I mean, it was the same book. It just happened to be a slightly older copy that was available. I mean, I think the library had the newer version. It just was checked out.
Sure. Yeah. Some other student who was just a little bit
Ahead of me, right?
There you go. Yeah. All right. So Kanya, you've worked for the library. You've been a library user, but I want to know, you've done a whole lot of really, really cool things at the library. What are you proud of? What accomplishments are you proudest of in your years at the Austin Public Library?
Well, gosh, that's hard to say. I mean, it's all been very much a team effort, and the team that I work with is, I work with a lot of the most creative people in the library, and there's always ideas that are kind of coming also from outside of that team, from the library pool at large. I'd say the community, the library community, all of the staff.
Right.
But yeah, I think the most exciting things that I've gotten to do have been, going out into the community and talking one-on-one with people about what the library does, doing some outreach. That was in the early years. And then I think it was around 2013, maybe 2014, when we did the Geek the Library campaign.
Right.
And that was kind of a national campaign that we were able to regionalize. And so we had some of the national components, like they had some really great posters and quotes and things that were already done. And then we kind of duplicated that, but very much regional. You could go into a particular neighborhood and see people a neighborhood library branch, and see people who lived in and around that area, their posters and their quotes of what they geek,
Right.
what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
interested in, and whatever the idea was, like, whatever you geek, we have it. We got you at the library, and so it was really neat. I got to kind of bring in a lot of people that I know, as well as people I didn't know. We took their photos and we talked about what inspired them. So we had, a tattoo artist. We had a painter, Jennifer Balkan. She's actually won Best Painter in Austin through the Austin Chronicle thing. We had Grupo Fantasma, one of my favorite local bands. They're like Grammy Award winners. They agreed to pose for us and do a poster, and of course they geek music.
Sure. Good music.
Yes. And, we got to interact with so many different people. But the best thing about that campaign wasn't the famous or, sort of like well-known people in the community. It was going out to a branch and just setting up a camera and talking to people that use that branch every day, and asking them what they geek, and talking to kids and, older people. Oh, there was this one woman who told us this whole story about she geeked a certain very specific species of wasp because her late husband, had discovered that species of wasp and named it after, his last name. And anyway, she just had such a beautiful story, and she used the library all the time and was just very invested in the library and all of the things that it had to offer. So those little connections, those kind of human community connections, it meant a lot to me, and I think it meant a lot to other people that would come into the library and they'd see those posters, or they'd see, we had some billboards, we had some bus wraps with these we had this one young family, a husband and wife and their young toddler, and they had such a beautiful photo and a beautiful, I think they geeked family or something along those lines. And so they were one of the people that we put on the side of the bus. We had some funds that came, like some grant money that we were using that came through the OCO, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was really neat to be able to do this. Anyway, this family, they saw their bus going down the street and they took a picture in front of the picture on the side of the bus, and they sent it to us, and they were so excited. And so that was really fun. And we won a best media campaign or something. I can't remember the exact title, but it was through the Austin Chronicle for that year, best local campaign or something along those lines. So it was really nice to kind of get that notoriety or get that recognition from, one of our local papers. And that was a lot of fun. And since then we've done the Mylibrary Campaign, which is kind of different but similar in that we have gone out and gotten photographs of different people in the community and asked them what it is that the library means to them. So the quotes are, "My library is my sanctuary," or "My library, this, that, or the other." And so again, just kind of trying to, find out where connect with people and find out what it is that inspires them about the library and stuff like that. So that's been really, really amazing. This radio show has been really fun.
Oh, yes.
This has been probably, the most fun thing that I've gotten to do, I'd say, in my life is, doing the radio show. It's a lot of fun to do live radio. And it's neat to know that people out there, might be driving around in their cars or working in their offices, in their studios, whatever, and, learning about some cool stuff happening at the library that's maybe down the street from their house.
Sure, absolutely. So, Kanya, one of the things I was thinking, so your job title, we talked about it earlier, you're public information specialist, but you're generally behind the scenes. You're not working face to face with the public most of the time, but you're describing situations or work incidents where you go out into the community to talk to people. So so your job is really not a public service job, but you work really, really heavily with the public, or do you?
Well, as much as I can, I like to get out from behind my desk and computer and go to where the people are. But a lot of my job does require me to sit in front of a computer for long hours a day. So a lot of people don't really know, what does a public information specialist do? That's a weird title. And it's a lot of everything, but it's basically communication. So getting the word out about the library, letting people know what we're doing. So that can be talking about our programs and services, sending that information to the media or to blogs or to places where it will be seen. It can involve outreach. It can involve also working with the media when they're interested in doing a story, or when I have something interesting happening at the library and I want them to come and do a story about the library, those kinds of things. So, it is a people job, but you're right. It's very much behind the scenes. And I think the parts of it that I find the most rewarding have definitely been when I do get out and interact with the public at large and kind of get their feedback, what they like about the library, what it means to them. And, it's just, it helps. It also, it helps guide us in making sure that we're giving out the right messages. Like, oh yeah, everybody knows about, that the library has books. But when people say, "Oh, I didn't know the library had, databases where you can read, the latest newspaper from around the world," oh, well, we do. So it's good to kind of get that feedback and kind of close the loop and go, "Oh, well, that's something I need to make sure that we're sharing with the community that they have this resource available to them that they weren't even aware of.
Sure. Well, and then the library it belongs to the people, the citizens of Austin. And so obviously we want, as citizens, we want to be able to say, hey, we're looking for this sort of thing or that sort of thing. And then it's up to you to figure out how to make that happen. Not that you'd have to do it by yourself, but that you are part of the communications aspect of this and you communicate with those people who can make things happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's definitely a two-way conversation. We're getting information, from the public about what their needs and wants are, what they like, maybe what they don't like.
Sure.
And then we're also I'm sharing out communications or information about what things might have changed at the library,
Yes.
what new services that we're expanding, new ways of doing things. Everything's changing all the time. Like you can now get online to renew your library card instead of having to come in person. That's a new thing that we're just rolling out currently.
Yeah.
There are, there didn't used to be online library applications. It used to only be handwritten paper application. Of course, those still exist somewhere, and I think they're still probably being used somewhere. But for the most part, we are now encouraging people to sign up online, and there's computers, in the library for that purpose, so that, because it's a lot faster, right?
Sure.
If people type in their own data rather than handwriting it and then somebody else having to type it in. So there's a lot of ways that, so little things like that, anytime there's a change in operations or a new service or a new program, I usually get looped in and yeah, it's my job to figure out, okay, well, who needs to know this? Is it everybody, or is it just, parents with small children, or is it just, so you kind of determine who your audience is. And then you try to figure out what is the best way to communicate this message with this audience. How can we make sure that we're communicating the message in a way that's, the most plain language? That's a thing that, is really important in communications, is using very plain, simple language, so that somebody who maybe English is not their first language, or maybe whatever different things might be going on in their life, that the message is simple and easy to understand, regardless of your circumstances.
Sure. And I'll bet you that you've got all kinds of friends in the media, like at Channel 36, I bet you know a lot of people in the media.
Yeah, we've worked closely with the media. I've worked closely also with the Spanish language media because I'm a Spanish speaker. So that's been really fun as well, like writing press releases in English and in Spanish. I've worked closely with all of the Spanish language stations, as well as, of course, the English speaking stations here in Austin, and not just TV, but we send out our messages to the radio and to the print media, and now we have bloggers and websites and all sorts of other media.
You have to know a whole lot nowadays, don't you?
Well, I guess so.
Yes, you do. Yeah. This is Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, and I am DJ Harris. I've been hosting today's show because we're interviewing the usual host, Kanya Lyons, who is a public information specialist at the Austin Public Library and your host here for Volumes. Kanya, you've done a really, really nice job on Volumes over the last 2 years. I've enjoyed working with you. This has been a really, really good thing, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, really, truly.
Okay, this is Austin. This is Volumes. We have to sign off now. Stay tuned for Rock and Roll Pest Control with Miss Novak. We will see you all next week.
Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Special thanks to our producer, DJ Harris, and to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song, Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and Mike Wheat on percussion. And thanks to you, our listeners. Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesday afternoons at 2:30 on Co-op 91.7 FM and KOOP.org. If you catch us mid-show, full episodes and other details can be found at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.